Good morning and welcome to Blue Rock Adventures. I'm Chris. A few weeks ago I made a video about why you might want a Panga in 2021. Today I want to take a slightly different take on that and tell you why a Panga might not work for you. Okay, so that you can make a good decision when you're thinking about your next boat or having a boat built. Thanks for joining me. Okay, the first thing I would say about a Panga is that Panga is kind of like the Ford F-150 of the boating world, if you want to think about it that way, right? It's kind of a utility type vehicle, and it can go anywhere from like a base model, very rudimentary, not much creature comforts, to one with a bit more, for sure. A lot of things can be added to a Panga, but most are, say, on the more Spartan kind of side, right, where not a lot of fancy upgrades and stuff like that. They're more utilitarian, kind of like a pickup truck. So that could be a downside to some people. For me, it's kind of a positive. It's kind of what I was looking for, but someone might be looking for something with a few more features to it. So that will be up to you if that's a downside or why you might not want a Panga, or it could be positive why you would want one. Another reason you might not want a Panga, and maybe the thing that I probably like least about it, is that the deck is not self-draining, right? The floor of the boat, the deck that you walk on, and mine has a secondary flat deck that rises slightly above the bottom of the hull. But it's not self-draining, it's not above the water level. So that means that any water that comes inside the boat has to be taken out by you or a bilge pump, right? You either got to bail or use a bilge pump. Whereas some of the factory boats, the deck is above the water line, and so, you can wash out your boat, or water can come over, and then it just drains out, the back scuppers on the boat, and you don't have to do anything really. So, I definitely see that as a potential downside to some people. It's nice to have kind of a deck that can bail itself out, that's above the water line. But that's just not the way it is in a Panga. Your deck is below water line, so any water that comes in the boat, you have to remove one way or the other. So that might be a reason why a Panga might not be right for you. Kind of along those same lines as the deck is that even though I put a secondary deck, a platform inside the hull to walk on, and to set the console and the seating on and all that, is that there's not a lot of under deck storage like you would have on a traditional kind of factory boat, right? There's just enough room basically for us to put our conduits in to run power wires and stuff like that under the bottom of the boat. But other than that, there's no storage under there at all. No room for fuel tanks or any live wells or fish boxes or any of that like you might have on a sort of a factory, more standard type boat. So for some people that could be a negative. So you just should know that. Okay. Another thing that you might not like about a Panga, or why it might not be right for you, is that the boat has a narrow beam. So that's part of the reason why a Panga is so economical, which is definitely on the plus side. But on the negative side, the narrow beam, which I think on my boat, where your feet are on the deck, is only about 5 feet across, and it's a bit wider at the gunnels, maybe close to 6 feet, 5.5, 6 feet, something like that. So as far as room on deck, it's not that roomy, as compared to a larger boat with a larger beam. And especially alongside the center console, I'll show you here, there's not a ton of room to walk by. It works, and it works fine, but it just might be a downside to you if you've got a bunch of friends you're always going out with, or a large family. it's somewhat limited on size inside the boat. So that's just something to think about, and it could possibly be a negative for you or a reason why you might not want to have a Panga. Another reason you might not want a Panga is they have sort of a non-factory appearance to them. Generally speaking, they're done in a mold, so the outside of the hull is pretty decent, actually, pretty good quality, but the inside has more of a kind of a rustic handmade sort of look. At least most of the Pangas that I've seen. I'm sure there are some that are better than others, but I would say 90% of the ones I've seen have sort of a rustic kind of quality to the fit and finish, especially on the interior of the boat. I'll try to show you some of that right now. Another reason why you might not want a Panga is that they are sort of simplistically designed, right? In my case, that's what I love about a Panga. But if you're looking for something that's a little bit more fancy, for lack of a better word, lots of features. So if you're interested in that, then a Panga might not be right for you. Another reason why a Panga might not be right for you is that they're sort of limited in size and configuration. So, I think the original Yamaha Panga was developed in the 1970s, and I think it was a 22 footer. It was designed for, small to medium size outboards. And now you can find Pangas anywhere from 20 feet or even less up to 27, 28 feet. That's what I regularly see here in Baja California. So they're somewhat limited as far as the size of the boat and the beam of the boat compared to what you could find from large manufacturers. Also, the configurations, while it's kind of unlimited, for the most part they come pretty basically laid out. So you can kind of either have one that's sort of the utilitarian with lots of bench seats all the way across the hull, or you can have a center console like I have, or you can have one where the console is on the side of the boat and with various seating, and that's pretty much the way I see 95% of Pangas. Although if you think about it, it's kind of unlimited what you could do on the inside. Okay, another reason that a Panga might not be right for you is that it's not the driest ride in boats, that's for sure, right? It has a fairly low gunnel on the sides. The bow rises nicely and the bow stays pretty dry, but towards the rear of the boat, if you're in heavy chop with a wind to the side or something like that, it doesn't keep the water out. Like my previous boat was a 24-foot Robalo, and that was a super dry ride. It sat high in the water, and it kept the water out really good. These Pangas, my Panga sits lower in the water. The gunnels are only about 24 inches, and so if we're crashing through the wakes, or if it's kind of choppy and breezy out, we tend to get a little wet on the inside. So that's another negative about having a Panga. Where we live, where it's always warm, it's not so bad, but especially in maybe a colder climate where getting wet on a winter day wouldn't be fun, it's something to take into consideration. Okay, so lastly, I think the last thing that I would say is a negative about a Panga, or why you might not want a Panga, is that it has a relatively flat bottom, which makes it very economical. It makes it easy to get on plane. But what it also means is that if you're in a good choppy water, it tends to pound or slam on the water, depending on your speed and how you're hitting them. but you know, it definitely does so more than a boat with a more of a V in the hull. And I'll kind of give you an idea of just how flat Pangas are. And actually my Panga is kind of a very slight semi-V hull, more than some Pangas. Some Pangas are nearly virtually completely flat, especially at the stern. But I'll give you a couple of views of the underside of mine so that you can kind of see how relatively flat the bottom of the hull is. Okay, my friends, there you go. That's about all I have to say about why a Panga might not be right for you. Like I said in a previous video, which I'll link to before all the benefits of a Panga, you know, there are some things to consider, and I just wanted to give you the other side of the coin, right? So you can make a great decision if you're deciding on buying a new boat or having a Panga built. You know, these are the kind of things that you only realize after having one. So hopefully you got some valuable information out of this. If you did, maybe you can give the video a like or think about subscribing to the channel. We'd love to have you. We're hoping to bring you some great content in the future. So you have a great day. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it.